Hi y'all, welcome to my kitchen. I am Margaret Nygaard. This is No Recipe Necessary, and today we're making scones. So about a year and a half ago, Jim did a business trip to Windsor in the UK, and in addition to being able to look out of our hotel room directly across the street into St. George's Chapel, I got hooked on scones. I'd had scones before, but this gave me a good opportunity to eat plenty more. Scones, if you're not familiar with them, are basically a sweetened biscuit. They're great for tea. I have very fond memories of having what they call a cream tea, which meant scones with clotted cream at Runnymede when I went to go see the Magna Carta Monument Memorial there. So to make this, we're going to start with your basic scone recipe. In my bowl, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a third of a cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to add a tablespoon, not a teaspoon, but a tablespoon of baking powder, a generous pinch of salt, and in this cup I have half a cup of heavy cream, a quarter cup of milk, and I'm going to stir in 1 large egg. Set that aside. Sorry, the oven's preheated. Set that aside while I add the butter. Now I've got half a cup, that's 1 stick of unsalted butter, and I'm going to add this to my bowl. Kind of toss it with the flour mixture to start with, but then I'm going to start mushing it all together. I don't want this as fine as you would do for, say, a pie crust. I want some flakes in here, so it'll really help the scones puff up, and it'll just spread that butter flavor all the way through. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm mashing it between my fingers, but I'm also going to take some of these and I'm going to push it with my hand, and that just flattens out that butter into flakes. I admit, we're really addicted to these things. For somebody who tries to limit her carbs, I eat way too many of them. You still want most of this to be like a cornmeal texture, so mostly incorporated into the flour, but you want some bigger pieces left behind. That's going to get you your fluffiest, lightest, airiest scones. You're also going to want to, once we get past this point, handle it as little as possible. Again, like biscuits and pie crust, the more you deal with it, the tougher it gets. And nobody likes a tough scone. Now, there's a whole lot of different ways you can flavor your scones. I've been known to add this, when I add my liquids, add a little bit of vanilla bean paste or vanilla seeds, and then some toasted almonds. You could cut down your sugar a bit and make it a savory one. Add some herbs, maybe even a little cheese. Just like biscuits, these are a good thing to just kind of play with and come up with what works for you, what works for your family, what works for your menu. All right, so we're about there. You see, it only takes a few minutes to bring this together. Just making more of those flakes before we mix it together. All right, so that's it. That's pretty good. Get some of that butter off my hands. All right, gonna give this another quick stir. And just dump the whole thing in there. Now I'm using a bowl scraper to do this. You can use a spoon, whatever, as long as you're just handling it as little as possible. But I'm going to use this to just lightly mix that together. And just like a biscuit, it's going to come together in pretty much a shaggy dough, and that's all we want. We don't want this to be perfectly smooth. If you do, what you got is rocks. All right. Now I'm going to flour my counter a little bit. And once this has come together very roughly, I'm just going to push it out onto my counter. And this really is your basic dough. At this point, I could put this in the oven and bake it. You'd have plain scones. Not a thing wrong with those. Very much like a plain biscuit, then only slightly sweet. This is why we wear aprons. Things go flying in my kitchen. A little bit left in there. All right. Now between the butter and the egg, you can see that it's got a nice yellow color to it. Now what we're going to use for flavoring today is our personal favorites, which is a cranberry orange. Now to make my cranberry orange, I use frozen cranberries most of the time, but you can use dried cranberries. Be aware that they're going to be really sweet because they sweeten those. And then instead of just orange peel, I use a candied orange zest that I made. Very simple thing. We'll go over that some other time, but candied orange zest and some pecans, and the combination is delightful. All right, so I've got my pile, and now what I'm going to do is just add my add-ins. So I've got some cranberries that I keep in the freezer. You could use them fresh, and a handful of the pecans and orange zest. And I'm just going to fold that over it so that all of that's in the middle. Whoop. I need a little extra flour on my hands. And kind of pat it into a circle. Just like that. I got a little bit of extra goodie over here, so I'm going to add that in. Now, using any knife, I'm going to use a palette knife. I'm going to cut this up like I would a pie. So into 8 pieces, across the middle. Now you can use a cookie cutter if you want round ones, but honestly, you have so much waste doing that. And you're going to have to manipulate your scones more. You'll have to gather up all your scraps and put them back in a couple of times, and that'll toughen up your scones. So this is it. That's all the handling that's going to happen. And I'm going to put these on a parchment covered baking sheet. Separate them out so they've got room to grow. Press in any escaping cranberries. Did not come all the way through. Now I've got a little bit of milk, and I'm just going to pat the top of these with that. That's going to give the top a nice shine. We're going to glaze these once they're cooled a little bit, but we still want them to have a nice shine. Help them brown a little bit. These are going to be lovely. All right, so 375. They're going to bake for 20-25 minutes until they're golden brown. And we'll see how they turn out. So, scones are out. They smell amazing, but I'd like to glaze them a little bit. So all I've done is, it's about half a cup of confectionery sugar that I've sifted, and I've just got a little orange juice, and I'm gonna mix this until it's a consistency that I want. Cranberries and oranges always go well together. You get a sweetness and a tartness, and it's just one of my favorite combinations. All right, that's it. It's not real difficult. And now I'm just going to drizzle that over my scones. They're cooled just a little bit. And there you have it. And you can see these are light and fluffy and delicious. The best. Sorry about that. I'm Margaret Cooper Nygaard. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe and the like button, and I'll see you next time. Take care.